Okay, so I'm gonna try and do this video in one take. Um, so it might be a bit rambling because it's something that's basically just happened. Oh well, it's been happening for a few weeks, but the actual final straw just came today. So I'm a bit sort of triggered, I guess you could say. But I figured I'd get my thoughts down, and that would probably help the situation somewhat. So we're going to start this story about 11 months ago, almost a year ago. And to sort of preface things, have a little bit of an admission to make, which is I've got a bit of an addiction problem. Not to like heroin or anything like that, but it's like painkillers and hard liquor, basically. It's something that I've had for a lot of years, since I was young, and it's had like a definite effect on me. And I've gone through brief periods in the past of getting clean, and kind of then something will happen and I'll relapse back to using. And the periods that I'm clean, it's always kind of similar. It takes about 30 days and I go through hell for about 30 days, and then I feel incredible once I've come through the other side of that. And obviously there's a withdrawal aspect of things, but the other side of it is that when you're using, obviously the reason behind addictions is covering up pain and negative emotion that you're not very good at dealing with. And so when you come off of them, as you go through that month, you do start to learn to process things a lot better. And so it clears away the depression, which to me, depression really is like that when you're almost not feeling anything, you're numbing everything and you just feel terrible. And when you come off of an addiction, you don't feel depression, you feel actual sadness kind of thing. And you learn to cope better. Anyway, to make that somewhat relevant to this story, round about just over a year ago, I met a girl who she was friends of a friend, and at the time I was using. And when I'm using, I sort of have a lot of issues that go along with that. Social anxiety seems to become an issue for me when I'm on pills and alcohol. Become very socially anxious, very awkward, very just weird. You give off weird vibes because you're numbed out of your mind, really. And it's just not a good thing. And 24 days clean today, by the way. But we'll get to that. Anyway, so yeah, I was sort of friends with this girl, and she kind of introduced this friend of hers, and we all sort of hung out together a few times. And I actually heard like this other girl was always quite sort of weird around me and just quiet, and just didn't give me any kind of indication that she liked me at all. It like she actually disliked me. And I later heard that she had told my other friend that I was creepy and things like this. And anyway, I decided to clean up just because I wanted to. And so about just over a year ago, just maybe a month or two after I'd met this girl, I got off the pills and I went almost 4 months, which was actually a record for me. 4 months without, and I experienced tremendous change in my energy levels, my health, my mindset, my mental health, mental function, just sharpness, humour, everything increased. And kind of funnily enough, after being off for maybe just over a month or something, this girl, the one that had called me creepy and just didn't like me at all of a sudden started talking to me more, and talking to me just, more and more. And it got to the point where she was actually contacting me independently of her friend. And, so, I mean, to me, it was kind of obvious why. I knew why. It was because I was just vibing a lot higher, and I was just genuinely a better person. I was changing. It's probably quite fascinating for people that are external to watch something like that when they don't actually know, anything about you. So they don't know that you're coming off of an addiction, and that is why all of a sudden your whole personality is changed, and you're just throwing off a better vibe, But anyway, so talked to this girl quite a bit, and at this point I just add that she's very, very attractive, but I had never really looked at her like that, because at the time I was still dealing with my old borderline ex, and my attention was fully there. As anybody who's been through that experience will tell you, it doesn't matter how attractive some other girl is. She's not the borderline that you're involved with. You don't care. You don't even really notice. So it was very much like that. And anyway, I was still dealing with my borderline ex, but it wasn't going anywhere. Nothing was really coming of it. And eventually, after maybe 2 months or something like that of talking to this girl quite a lot, and it becoming almost a daily thing, she actually messaged me one night and invited me to a party at her house. And it was a Saturday, and I'd finished work and I'd gone home, and I had no plans to go out, and it was about 8-9 o'clock. I was in front of the TV watching Netflix with like a blanket on and the cat sleeping on top of the blanket, and I just had no kind of desire to go out or anything. But then she also invited one of my male friends who happened to know her female friend who she lived with, and he was going, and he messaged me, and he's one of these guys that's like, come on, let's go. And so I was like, all right, cool, I'll go. So I went, and I got there. The girls had a few drinks. They were a little bit buzzing, and what was pretty obvious as soon as I got there was that there was no party. It was me, my friend, and her friend. So that was interesting. And this girl was really flirtatious with me, extremely. She was like, come and like look around my house, and show me all around the house, like grab me by the hand and show me around the house and stuff like that. She was giving me drinks. She was, like just totally flirty, and we ended up going to the clubs, and we go to the clubs, and then she's even more kind of flirty at the clubs. And long story short, it was coming to the end of the night, and it was pretty obvious, that we were going to end up going home together. Now, we actually didn't, which, looking back, probably saved me a fair bit of trouble, but it didn't save me completely. So what happened was, I got a message from some other friends who were in town, and it was about 1:30, and town wraps up at about 2. I got a message, and I ended up saying, hey, I'm just going to go say hi to my friends, and I was kind of intending to come back. Anyway, caught up with my friends, and sort of lost track of time. And my phone was on, like, had 2% battery and it died. And I looked around for her for a bit, but couldn't find her. And I was like, well, I'll go home. And, no big deal. Because I say at the time I was still pining for my borderline ex, but I also kind of acknowledged this girl as another option at this point. And so I went home, had like some messages from her, like, where are you, and this kind of thing. And but nothing really came of it. Sorry about the coughing, I've got a cold at the moment. Nothing really came of it. Like, the next few weeks, she was asking me to go over to her house a lot. Like, she probably asked me about 10 times in 1 month, and I kind of made an excuse every time because, as I said, I was still trying to work things out with my borderline ex, and also there were some red flags about this girl, and I was still addicted to my borderline ex at this point. But I had learned enough to be quite wary of red flags, and also at this time, this girl, she lived with a guy as well. A guy also lived in the same flat, and she had been having like a friends with benefits arrangement with him for a while, but she didn't want anything more than that. And around about the time that she developed a crush on me, she stopped the friends with benefits with him, and she would show me text messages and Facebook messages and things like that he'd sent her, where he was essentially begging her for a relationship. And she was quite spiteful in her responses, I kind of sort of saw both sides, because the guy was being pretty sad, but at the same time I was also like, I think she could probably have handled that nicer, you know what I mean? But anyway, and then after a little while it kind of became obvious that things weren't going to happen between us, because just at that time I just wasn't ready for anything and stuff, and I pretty much just let her go. And after 6 or 7 weeks, she found some new dude, and she told me that she went and slept with this guy, and in the morning she called her flatmate, the one who was like in love with her, and got him to pick her up from his house. And she was like laughing about it, and I was just like, wow, that's pretty harsh, but deal with your own things, and you kind of you don't really think too much about this sort of stuff. But anyway, so she only saw this new dude for about 2 weeks, and then they had like a big massive argument, and then that didn't work. And then the next thing I know, it popped up on my Facebook feed that she was in a relationship with the guy from her flat, the guy who'd been begging her and stuff, and she'd been blowing off for me and the other guy and that. And I was like, well, that's interesting. Like, I didn't really think too much of it, but I just remember thinking at the time, I was like, wow, like, because everything I know is like begging women doesn't work, and she wasn't interested, and I was like, well, kind of good on the guy, but he sort of got what he wanted, but he out of going completely the wrong way about it, which I found interesting. But anyway, and after like a couple of months, it became apparent that this was actually like really serious. Like, so she'd done a complete 180, and now she had gone all in on this relationship, to the tune of that I was hearing from mutual friends that she was looking at wedding rings and saying that she wanted to get pregnant to this guy. And I was thinking, just like 9 weeks ago, you were taking the piss out of this dude. Like, so it was interesting. But long story short, I didn't speak to her for about maybe 7 months. Basically the entire duration of that relationship, just because of previous experiences I've had. I don't really communicate with women when there's more than a platonic vibe, if they're with someone. It's just nothing good can come of it. And so I just had no reason to contact her, really, and I just didn't speak to her. And about 2 months ago, I got a message from her, and she had broken up with the dude. And so I was like, oh, okay. And I still wasn't really thinking too much about anything, really. It just was like, well, she was fun and she was kind of a friend as well. So, yeah, we can have a chat. And we had a conversation and we chatted through the night, really. And a few days later, my friend who lives down the street from us messaged me and said, oh, she's here. We're having a few drinks. You should come say hi to us. And I was like, I was having drinks with my friends at my flat, and I was like, oh, I can walk 3 doors down the street and say hi. So I went down there and ended up staying there for a couple of hours. And then the two girls wanted to go to town, and they were like, oh, come with us. And I was like, I can't. I'm having drinks with my friend. And anyway, I messaged him and just said, look, would you mind? And he was like, no, go for it. You go out, have fun. So I was like, all right, sweet. So went to town. And long story short, hooked up with this girl in town, the girl I'm talking about, obviously. And funnily enough, got separated again. And my phone died again. And I was just like, man, it's bad timing with her, isn't it? And but I went home, and then I got home, put my phone on charge, turned it on, and I just had message after message after message about how could you ditch me, arsehole, and this kind of thing. So I messaged her back straight away, and I'm like, look, honestly, I know that this doesn't seem like it, but it was an accident. And she was like, because she was talking to some of her other girlfriends, and I was like, she'll just make her way back to my friend who lives down the road, kind of thing. And anyway, she was there, and she was like, can I want to come to yours for the night, can I do that? And I was like, yeah, of course. So I walked down to my friend, got her, and walked home. And, we had a good night, and yeah, we sort of stayed up till the early hours of the morning. And then afterwards we were watching movies. We had an hour's sleep, woke up, started watching movies again. Everything was great. And then all of a sudden, about 11 o'clock, she just got up in a huge hurry and left. And I was like, that's weird, but okay. And she messaged me a few hours later and was like, oh, I'm sorry, that I left in such a hurry, but, I had such a good night and all this kind of stuff, and everything was great. And I was like, cool. And as I say, that there were plenty of red flags about this girl, the way she'd kind of treated other guys and stuff, but my kind of biggest mistake has been throughout my life not learning my lessons, and I've actually started to have therapy for childhood trauma, because I've tried to battle with myself for 2-3 years, and I've learned a lot, and I handle situations differently, but the underlying issues are still there. And so I've going to therapy now, and that's fantastic, because with any luck this will help me let go of that, and it'll stop me from making silly mistakes. And anyway, so about a week goes by, and I'm kind of can tell that I knew that this girl would like me in the past, and she admitted it when we were in bed and stuff, and everything, and it was very much like this might be going somewhere, and I sort of struggled with myself, because I wanted to clean up, get off the pills. So I was like, if I'm going to actually potentially have something more serious with someone, then I need to give them the best of me. And so I was struggling to get clean. I would go 2 days, 3 days relapse, 1 day relapse, 4 days relapse, and it was like that. So I was trying to push through, and I kind of I was also in two minds about it, because of all the red flags I'd seen. My gut instinct was telling me that this is not a good idea, but then another side of me was saying, you haven't seen anything that bad from her, and you know, she doesn't seem anything like your exes that were cluster B. She just seems like a typical young girl, really. And maybe, you know, if you clean up and can get your act together and get yourself strong, you maybe give it a go. And, you know, I was just thinking like that. And I was thinking, you only live once, and maybe just give it a try and see what happens, but just guard yourself, kind of thing. And so I was having a lot of internal battles and stuff, and she would want to hang out and things. And a couple of times I sort of avoided it and stuff like that. But then I managed to get clean. Well, you know, I'm 24 days now, and so I got 10 days. I got to 10 days clean. And she, what I then heard was from my friend who lives down the street, was that she was moving onto my street. She had some other things here as well. There were like a lot of other little things, like she came to my house one night, and I looked down at her phone because she just like turned the screen on to look at the time, and her screensaver was a picture of me and her that she'd taken and stuff like that. And I started to feel guilty that I'd kind of been pushing her away, and that I felt as though I'd messed her around. And I was like, you know, I want to make it right, and people don't deserve to be treated like that, because me being through what I've been through, I don't want to hurt someone else, you know. And yeah, so her friend comes to me and says she's moving in and I'm like, she's moving into your house, like 3 doors down from mine? She's like, yeah. I was like, oh. And I went home and thought about it, and I was like, well, I should just man up and make something happen then. You know, if she's going to be this close, this is going to be awkward. So I was like, you know, fuck it, I'll just go for it. So I messaged her, and she tried to friend zone me. And I pretty much just said, no, like, you can fuck off with that. And she's like, what do you mean? And I was like, look, the vibe between me and you has never been platonic, and I'm not interested in that. Like, I was like, and you know, kind of what had happened is, because I had sort of backed off loads and things like that, you know, she just wasn't sure anymore. And anyway, I said no to the friend zone. She got a little bit mad for about 5 minutes, and then she messaged me back, and suddenly we were like hardcore flirting, talking about hooking up and that when she moved in and all this kind of thing. And then she said, well, I'm actually moving in tomorrow night, so can you come down and maybe just give me a hand, because, you know, I'm on my own, and yeah, we'll hang out afterwards. And I was like, yeah, sweet, cool. I'm not doing anything. So following night comes, I go down, move her shit in, and then she was just being like pretty sort of weird. Just the vibe was very odd and uncomfortable. And I was like, I'm just gonna go, because yeah, like, it's just a bit weird and a bit frosty, so I don't know what's going on. But yeah, so I went home, and then we had like a blowout argument, and she tried friend zone me again. And I said, I explained to you last night that is not going to happen. And I got the textbook, I'm just not sure that I'm ready for a relationship right now, which by now I already know what that means. And just, I could judge the whole situation, and I knew there was someone else involved now, like somebody else had come into the picture, or there was something going on. And so my response was, okay, well, that's cool, but I'm not interested in being friends. And I was just like, no hate, like, I like you, you know that. So if you figure yourself out and, you know, you decide that you want to try something with me, let me know. But otherwise, kind of good luck to you. And she raged for a minute, then she said she understood. And she went off, and didn't hear from her for a few days. And then she started to just message me little, like, breadcrumbs, we would call them. It's just little bits of info. And was like, well, I'm not going to completely ignore her because that's just rude, but I just give 1 or 2 word responses because I was like, you're not supposed to be chit chatting with me, like, we're going to sort this out, or otherwise there's no point talking. And anyway, that's gone on for a bit, and here's where we get to the good part. So today, a mutual friend comes to me at work and tells me that, and this is quite funny because brother John, YouTuber who has taught me a lot, he posted something on his Facebook a few weeks back about this like sugar daddy thing. I kind of read it and like laughed at it. Well, anyway, he must have had a sixth sense, because this mutual friend comes in and tells me that she's joined this website called Seeking Arrangements, and that she currently is having sex with older, wealthy men for money. So that's what I got hit with today. And I'm like, I'm such an idiot. You know, that news hits you like a ton of bricks, because it's not something you kind of encounter every day. I knew something was up, but I didn't realise it was that bad. And it just sort of struck me. I was like, I'm really doing the right thing by getting therapy, because I need help, because you talk about self-destructive and not learning your fucking lesson. Look no further, and I'm rapidly approaching 30 now, and this can't keep on. Something's got to give, and something's got to change. So yeah, like, that's where I'm at. She's still living 2 doors down the street, and maybe that house is going to turn into a brothel. I don't know, but there we go. Like, girl that I actually like, and that, and you get a mad kick in the balls. But the warning signs were all there. So I'm not going to sit here and play the victim and say, oh, like, woe is me. I mean, it's my fucking fault. I didn't learn, and I didn't trust my instincts, because my gut instinct told me. And even brother John told me. I messaged him and asked him a few questions about her, and he knew straight away, as I knew myself. But I just, wanted to believe different, and conned again by a pretty face and someone who can be a good time and seems to have everything, but in reality has nothing. And it's a sad thing. It is a sad story, because there's a girl there that's young. That's someone's, well, a couple of crazy people, from what I've heard, daughter, and another case of a fucked up upbringing, useless parents, and she's someone who's got such a black hole inside that there's just no problem to just go sell the old body for a little bit of cash. She doesn't even need the cash. She's full-time work, earns pretty decent, owns her own car, all her own furniture and shit. She's not shy of a couple of quid, but what are we talking here? Filling a void? I don't know. It's not my job to diagnose someone. It's not my job to help someone. So I just have to leave it be. But yeah, I just need to get that one out, because fucking hell. I mean, maybe someone can learn something from this. The message is, sort yourself out first. Like, really do whatever you need to do, because you can con yourself that you've learned your lesson and that you're getting better and stuff. But if you haven't done some deep, serious fucking work on yourself, you will just keep tripping yourself up, and you'll revert to type. And that's why I'm going on this journey now through therapy and things like that. Well, quitting all my addictions and trying, like, putting just major effort to turn my life around, because I'm too old to have this happen to me again. And so that's kind of my lesson from all of this. And trust your instincts, guys. Like, and this is, not any hate or anything in this, because I feel like we're beyond that in the journey now of like blaming other people or blaming these girls or whatever the case may be. It just is what it is, and it's a sad world that we live in where a lot of sad stuff goes on. And if you're vibrating on like a low level and you operate from a place of, you know, scarcity and fear, this is what you end up getting involved with. It happened to me because, I don't know, I hadn't dealt with things. So anyway, there's a new Game of Thrones out, so I'll just quickly convert this video and throw it up on YouTube and go watch that. But yeah, sad story, guys, but what are you gonna do? Peace.